Hey, howdy, hey, and welcome back, y'all. I'm Dallas, and this is Dallas Does Makeup, and today we're doing some makeup. Alright, this is gonna be the first installment of a short series I'm doing where I take you through all the steps of putting on a face of makeup, from primer all the way through to like a glam eye look. I'm gonna teach you how to put on primer, I'm gonna teach you how to put on foundation and concealer, and all that jazz, all the way through to the end. Of course, if I don't answer all of your questions, you can always YouTube it. I am not the only makeup artist out there. I do not have the only opinions or the only correct methods out there either. Makeup is an art form. It's all about self-expression, and I really encourage you to look for other demonstrations, look for other makeup artists teaching you how to do this, because, you know, what works for me, a person with oily skin and a lot of acne, may not work for you. If you have dry skin, or if you don't have any acne, or if you suffer from like rosacea and stuff, you may need some different techniques. But without any further ado, let's get started. So since this is episode 1, I'm going to be starting us off with just the base technique. So as you can see, I've already washed my face. I put on some toner, which is composed primarily of witch hazel, just because that's one of the only things that doesn't irritate my skin. And then I put on heaps of moisturizer with SPF. Now, you always want to start your makeup looks, doesn't matter how much makeup you're putting on, you always must wash your face first. You wash your face, and then you put on moisturizer, because that is going to give you just the smoothest, cleanest template to work with. It's going to give you the best canvas to work with. It's going to give you the smoothest, cleanest canvas to work with. And I have put a makeup on a dirty face before, and I don't recommend it. Like, you think it's going to be fine, and then it's not. It, like, starts peeling off, and, like, if you scratch your face, it comes off under your nails. It's just bad. It's all around bad. Don't do it. Plus, it makes your acne worse if you do it like that. Now, you really gotta, you put down that, and then you put down the moisturizer, and the moisturizer is going to serve as, like, a nice skin barrier. And then your primer is going to serve as another skin barrier before you put makeup on top of it. Alright, going in with primers. Since I have oily skin, but it's also very bumpy and uneven, I don't like using a mattifying primer all over my face. I use a mattifying primer on my forehead, but then I go in other places with this Beauty Bakerie primer stick, which is, oh my god, like, this thing is just unexpected. I would say this is like a sleeper stick or something. Like this is like those sleeper movies from the 80s where nobody thought it was going to be good, but then it was amazing. Like, I love this thing, because you think it's going to go on, you think it's going to make you cakey, you think it's going to skid across your skin, but just look at this. I'm applying barely any pressure here. It's just resting against my face and like melting onto it. It's incredible. And I love this because it's so great at smoothing out the edges on any patchy skin I have, or any, like, I get a lot of patchy skin here around my nose, and I get some bumps under my eyes, and it's just great at sort of rounding all of those out so that your makeup smooths on a lot better. So that's what I like using. And I'm just gonna do this. I'm just gonna stroke it across my face, you know. Stroke. And because I have shaved, you know, shaving always makes the makeup look better. Going over those stubble marks with the stick. And I don't apply it everywhere, you know. I apply it in, like, stripes. So that I put a stripe here, put a stripe here, put a stripe here, because you are still going to blend it. So I'm just going to take my fingers and kind of pat my skin to blend that stick in. And you want to just keep, like, pushing it into your skin. And that's going to give you the softest finish. It's going to smooth everything out. It's going to, the heat from your fingers and the heat from the skin beneath it is going to melt that primer so well. And then I do like to put the thing with noses, I find, is noses tend to cake up really easily. The pores there are a little bit bigger. But because it's bony, you don't have as much soft tissue to kind of help melt the makeup into your skin. And it's just a smaller canvas, so I like to put just the primer that's on the residue of my fingers onto my nose by kind of stroking it from the top into the eyes. And then with that tiniest layer of primer, it's going to help your foundation lay down better. But again, you're not going to use as much foundation there, because it's just not going to look as well. It's not going to look that good. Now, the reason I'm not putting primer all over my face and then rubbing it in is because less is more. You know, I take a lot of inspiration from Bob Ross, both as a painter and as an artist, and with his mental health struggles. And his paintings, his series has really helped me through some hard times in my life. And when he talks about the way he preps his canvas, he says he takes the tiniest amount of liquid white and smears it all over the canvas in the evenest coat possible, and with the smallest amount of paint as well. He's not making it feel wet to the touch, but he's priming his surface, essentially, so that when he goes in with his base color on top of that, it can move around a little bit, but it still has something to stick to. But then you're not, heaping gobs and gobs that's going to mix with your foundation, because you don't want your primer to mix with your foundation. You want your foundation to sit on top of your primer. All right, so I've done my smoothing primer on the bottom half of my face, and now I'm going to go in with the oil control primer on the top half of my face, and just kind of stroke it up towards the forehead. Even with oily skin, I find it is sometimes not a good idea to pair mattifying bases with mattifying foundations. Quite often, when you put a mattifying primer down, you already start drying out your skin. And then you put a mattifying foundation on top, so that any oil that does manage to seep through your primer is sucked out even more. But that foundation then starts sucking the oil out of the primer layer as well. And it's just too much, it's too much suck. You get that one for free. It's just too much mattifying. Now we're going to let this primer set for a couple minutes before we go in with our foundation. But as you can see, if I get a little closer, the skin is looking a little bit smoother all over, and that is exactly what we want. So, thanks so much for joining me with this information about primer. Oh, before we go, got a fake ending there on you. Before we go, I'm not going to put on the eye primer yet, but I do want to talk about eye primer. So, there are a couple different eye primers out there. I did have one by Anastasia Beverly Hills that I absolutely loved, and then it expired because I didn't use it enough, and I think I left it in like a moving truck at one point, so it got a little hot. I absolutely loved it. It was a little bit matte. It was a little bit drier to the touch than most primers, but it gave you this really like even base color-wise, which was great for blending like vibrant colors. But to get a replacement, I decided instead of going with Anastasia, I wanted to try the Fenty one again. And it's got this like, it's translucent, but it's a little bit stickier, so that when I put down eyeshadow, it doesn't really go anywhere, but then you also get a much richer impact upon first application. So there are various eye primers out there. I would recommend not putting them on until you're ready to start doing your eye makeup, just because you don't want them to dry too much. And the whole point of an eye primer is that, firstly, it does provide oil control for the eyelid itself to help prevent creasing, but then a good eye primer, a great eye primer, in addition to that, will provide a slightly tacky or slightly, or like a color correcting base, so that when you put down eyeshadow, especially powder eyeshadow on top, it stands out more and it sticks to your eyelid more, so you don't have to quite pack on quite as much eyeshadow to really get the color payoff. Instead, you're putting down eyeshadow and it looks like the eyeshadow you just picked up from the pan, instead of being sheared out by the color underneath your brush, by the color of your eyelid. Thanks so much for watching my video on primer. Up next, there's going to be a video. Up next, I gotta gesture with this hand because this is where the next button is. Up next, there's going to be somewhere in this area, if there's the next button. Up next, oh wait, the next button's over here, isn't it? Up next, I'm just going to gesture with both hands. Jazz hands. Go all Bob Fosse on you. Up next, there is going to be a video about foundation. So once you have correctly applied your primer, you are ready to start applying your base color. And that comes in the form of foundation. Stay tuned. Thanks so much for watching, y'all. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.